Hello everybody, my name's Carly Stong. My pronouns are she and her, and I want to welcome you to your practice today. Today we're going to be using some props. We're going to be using a heavy and a lightweight. For you, that might be different than they are for me. For me, I'm using a 15-pound weight for heavy. I'm using a 5-pound weight for my lightweight, and we're also going to use a resistance band in our practice. As you move through this practice, if you find that your weight is too light or too heavy, feel free to swap it out for another, and keep in mind that different resistance bands have different levels of resistance. So if you're finding a particular practice too challenging, or if you're not really feeling much sensation at all, then I encourage you to seek out a different colored band, and that will change the level of tension in that resistance band. Now, sometimes people think that strength and mobility are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. They're things that you don't build at the same time, but more recent science is teaching us that we actually maintain higher amounts of mobility by building strength, and we can do so in a way that makes us more resilient, helps us move out of pain, and helps us function better in our day-to-day lives. So I really encourage you to give this practice a try and take it however you'd like. So you know your body best. If something doesn't feel good for you, if a weight is too heavy or too light, feel free to modify anything that I'm offering you today or skip it altogether. You'll recognize some of the movements or the poses from classes that we've done together previously. We're just adding this dimension of a little bit of external load. So let's get started. We're gonna start today let's start seated right where we are. And we'll find our 360 breaths. So maybe feeling for your bony ribs, and where your hands are placed on top of those bony ribs with your eyes open or closed, maybe starting to welcome a little bit of breath underneath your hands. Without too much effort, see if breathing in and out through the nose, if you can invite, as you inhale, a little bit of expansion beneath your hands, and as you exhale, a little bit of ease. And we'll do that just a couple more times. Notice how this feels in your body, and if anything else starts to shift as the breath changes here. And then keeping your hands around the same level or so, see if you can feel into the back of your body. So maybe flip your palms like they were going into jean pockets. Breathing comfortably here without too much effort. Again, I'll remind you here, this practice is yours. If you want to turn on different music, if you want to light incense or a candle, if you need to take a break at any time, please feel free and just come on back and join us whenever. You can leave your hands where they are or let them settle, and see if you can cultivate this idea of that 360 breath, almost like a band around your midsection. And as you inhale, all the corners of that band expand. And as you exhale, there's a little bit of ease. This breath is actually the first step in our building strong core stability. So what I'd like for you to do is, throughout the whole practice, anytime that I speak of the breath, try to visualize and cultivate this 360. Okay, so now let's move to hands and knees. I'm gonna face you just for this first part. And because hands and knees isn't a position that we often come to in our yoga practice, we'll give the wrists a little bit of preparation for this. So to begin, if this feels like a lot of work for your wrists or your hands, instead of being at like 90-degree angles on top of your wrist, just start to move your seat back a little bit so you can adapt how much load or how much weight the wrists are supporting, especially in this first practice. So to begin, we're simply going to tap the fingers, starting just with the index fingers, your pointer fingers, as high as you can, trying to keep the other fingers, the other knuckles of the fingers on the floor. And we're going to do that about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 more times. And then the thumbs for 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, all the way down. Even if the movement is quite small, try to keep the wrists planted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Middle fingers. Bend your elbows if you need to. My left and my right are doing two different things here. Isn't it interesting how this movement has so much impact on our arms? And ring fingers. You can do it. Keep those knuckles down. Pinkies. So only bend the elbows or lift the knuckles if you need to for any movement to happen. From here, let's take big circles around those wrists. So just start to circle your body or shift forward and back so you're changing your relationship to load. And then change the positioning of your wrists. Maybe they turn in towards each other. And you can keep exploring this movement. Maybe keeping your weight back towards your feet, you could flip one palm so that the palm faces upwards. And maybe the same on the other side. So here we're trying to load the wrists in as many different positions as possible, and then just experience a little bit of movement. While you're doing this, you can continue to cultivate and focus on that 360 breath. Now, let's bring the palms back to facing forward. I'm going to turn sideways for this next part. You're still welcome to shift yourself back as needed. From here, let's create a little bit of strength in the arms. So imagine as though there's a secondary source of gravity on the ceiling. So as opposed to letting all of your weight hang into your joints, engage with the muscles of the back of the neck, and then hug your underarms in towards each other. And it may have the effect of kind of spinning your arms from sort of a position like this to more the creases of your elbows facing forward. While you're doing that, we're gonna try to root down through the four knuckles of the fingers. Again, shift back as much as you need. We're gonna lift the palms up and lower down, up and down. As you do this, try to stay rooted through all four knuckles on each hand equally. And the thumb could float up, might stay down. Make sure you're still breathing here. Maybe for about 3 more. And then after you're done that, just give the hands a little shake or circle. Imagine if we were to do that every time that we came to hands and knees in a practice, how much more strong and resilient those wrists would be. So we'll come back to our tabletop pose and practice cat and cow. So lift your tailbone to the sky, reach your heart forward, lengthen through the crown of the head. And on your exhale, maybe tuck the tail under, drop your chin really close to your chest so your head hangs heavily. Notice as you do this, maybe start with your tail and let it kind of reach up before any other part of the spine. And then slowly let that curve make its way up the spine as though you could move one vertebra at a time. And then tuck the tail and slowly changing shape, almost as though you could move one vertebra at a time. And you might notice some parts of your back moving really easily and some parts not so much. Keep engaging the arms to protect those wrists. So let's take our resistance band now and bring it somewhere that maybe you're not moving as well or as fluidly. So I'm going to bring that resistance band kind of behind my shoulder blade. You could put it anywhere that you'd like. Keeping it in my hands, I'm going to pin it down to the floor. And now, As I move through cat and cow, I have this little reminder of this part of my back that maybe I wasn't so keen to move. Try to keep the same speed through the spine, and after you've explored that shape a couple of times, shift to a slightly different spot. Move it up or down on the spine. Same thing. So if you have a resistance band and it's not giving you enough resistance, there is some room for you to adapt that by pulling and adding a little more sort of slack at the end, and then the reverse is true. And sometimes this external stimulus is just enough attention that we need to get something in our back moving that maybe wasn't moving before. We'll do this just a couple of times. And you can shift it again, maybe really low, like around the hip creases. Whoops. Just wrap it around your hand if you find yourself slipping. And maybe this gives you a whole different experience with cat and cow. Now, after you've done that a couple of times, we'll come out of that shape. You can let go of the resistance band. We're going to bring it in front of our bodies now and place it under our hands in tabletop. So now it's in front of the body on the floor. Imagine that your seat is glued to a wall behind you, so you're trying to keep your hips level, like you're trying to balance an imaginary fragile dish on your low back, or on your sacrum rather. As you next inhale, push into the right arm, and with your left arm, you're gonna open to the left, and then come all the way back down. Again, you can give a little more slack if you'd like. On an inhale, same thing. You're gonna open to the left, come on back down. Hips on that imaginary wall. When you're ready, on an inhale, opening to the left and down. Take a breath or two, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So when you're ready, root back with your seat and hips, and on an inhalation, you're gonna open to the right. Arms are straight. It's almost like sunrise, sunset. Opening through that upper back and continuing to root your right hip towards the floor as your right shoulder comes around. Maybe one more time. And then we'll just set that strap aside for a moment or two, sinking back towards child's pose or letting your wrists rest for a breath or two. We're gonna come back onto our wrists for one more position in just a moment. So once you feel ready, come on back to that nice, strong, and stable. On an inhalation, you're gonna take your left arm to like an L shape. I'm gonna turn just to show you what this looks like, and then I'll demonstrate it against gravity. So your left arm is in an L shape, and without moving your spine, the shoulder blade comes towards the spine and away from the spine. So we're trying to glide the shoulder blade on top of the spine as opposed to moving the whole spine to make this sort of happen. So keep yourself nice and strong in the core and visualize that shoulder blade moving towards the spine. If doing so in this position against gravity is proving difficult, you're welcome to practice this kneeling or seated so that you're not resisting gravity. Try to really visualize the movement coming from the shoulder blade right close to the spine as opposed to the elbow driving the movement. And we're gonna do it maybe 2 or 3 more times. Keep your right collarbone quiet. I'm just showing you the different options. And then the same thing on the other side. So first, a right angle, and then move shoulder blade to spine. Try to keep your elbow in line with your shoulder. And again, really driving the movement from the shoulder blade as opposed to the elbow. Maybe 2 more if you can. Now after you're done that, let's come on down to an alligator pose. So you're gonna come all the way down onto the mat, palm on top of palm, and your forehead relaxing in the hands here. Just wiggle yourself a little side to side to iron out any parts of your body that may have gotten a little pinched as you came to lie on the belly. Soften your seat. See if you can unclench your low back. I'm just lifting my head so you can hear me more clearly. But were I practicing this along with you, I'd have my forehead down on the mat or in my hands. And here, because the belly can't expand as much as it's used to doing when we're floating in space, gives us an opportunity maybe to create a little more space in the back of the body with your inhale. So as much as possible, relaxing your bum, relaxing the low back, relaxing the muscles near the spine, so that there's as much capacity and room for your inhale. And then the weight of your body will help to empty the lungs as you exhale. See if you can soften your neck here. And then we're going to slide the hands underneath the shoulders, elbows down to the mat. Keeping your forehead on the mat, we're going to lift elbows. And then from the top of the head and your neck, lift your ribs, lift your belly, maybe lift your hips, and then lower hips, lower belly, lower ribs, lower elbows. Take a breath or two, lifting just as high as you feel you can safely do. Lifting elbows, ribs, belly, maybe hips, drive your thighs into the floor, and lower hips, lower belly, lower ribs, lower elbows. We'll do that maybe 2 more times. So notice that my head is coming up with the ribs, and my head and neck are going down with the ribs, almost like I've got a pole attached to the back of my head. Last time. And then we're coming all the way back down. Take a moment or 2 here. And then we're gonna lay onto the side. So I'm gonna start by lying on my right side, bringing a blanket or 2 underneath my head for support so that my head isn't hanging towards the ground. So as you come to roll on your side, bring a blanket or 2 underneath your head and reach for your lightest weight. So trying to keep your spine as neutral as possible. Knees can be bent, that's fine. And your head wherever it's comfortable. With that light weight, we're gonna hug the elbow towards the spine, or towards the side, I should say. And then rotate the arm up and then level to the ground. So my weight is in my left hand right now. My upper arm is against my body, and my arm is at about a right angle or so. And the rotation is coming from my upper arm as opposed to from my wrist or my elbow. So it's almost like my arm is in a cast or a sling, and I'm lifting up, keeping the elbow tucked really close to my side. Maybe one more, and then set that weight aside. Take a moment or two. So from here, see if you can situate yourself so it feels like the back of the head, the back of the heart, and the back of your tail are on the same imaginary wall. So you're not like curled forward. And then position yourself so that the top hip is neither rolling forward nor rolling back. So you're trying to be nice and level. Knees will be bent, and both knees together. We're going to do knees down, both feet rolling up, or lifting up rather, and feet down. So the key here is that I don't want your top hip to roll forward. So I have my hand just barely, like weightlessly on top of my left hip. And if I were to roll it, I'll slide under my hand. So my hand isn't even holding the hip. It's just placed there so I could feel the fibers of my shirt moving forward if I start to roll forward. So knees down, feet up. Knees down, feet up. Knees down, feet up. After doing this a couple of times, lifting the feet as high as you can, you'll likely start to feel some sensation around the hip or the seat. If you're not, be conscious that your left hip isn't already rolled forward when you're starting. Maybe put a block behind you so that you can feel that sensation, or bring yourself just barely against the wall. Or as you're lifting, you might be rolling forward. And on your next one, keep the feet up, push those feet together, and you're gonna clamshell the legs apart. So the top thigh moves towards the ceiling. Don't forget to breathe here. And you're gonna do this about 2 or 3 more times while you breathe. If you start to feel your foot dropping, or if this becomes really crampy, just leave it there for today. Take a breath or two here. Once we're all in this starting position once again, find your heavier weight and roll onto your back for a moment. So you might choose to take one of the blankets away as you roll onto your back, just to create a little more of a level base here. So with that heavy weight, you're going to place it on the front of your hips, if that feels safe for you to do so. Place the feet close to your seat, but not so close that you can't feel stable in the feet. So you want the feet to feel like you can root down through the ball of your big toe, the ball of your pinky toe, and the center of the heel. I'm holding my weight here so that it's not going to fall left or right. Take an inhale breath. As you exhale, pop the hips up to bridge pose. Slowly lower down. Inhaling once you're down. As you exhale, pop the hips up. Slowly lower down. So I could probably do a bit of a heavier weight. This is the heaviest one I have on hand. Up, slowly lower down. Depending on how heavy your weight is, you might not be able to do as many reps. You might already be like, okay, that's all that my butt can take for today. I'm gonna just leave that aside. If your weight is relatively lighter, maybe you can do 1 or 2 more. Once you're done, be conscious to use both hands and place the weight somewhere safe away from you so that doesn't squish your fingers. And we're going to transition now to the other side. So I'll take a big turn just so that I continue to face you, but you can just roll over to the other side. Take that second blanket and place it under your head. Have your lighter block close by. We do the same arm exercises on the other side. So set yourself up like you were on an imaginary wall. The tail, the shoulders, and the back of the head against that wall. Most especially be conscious that your top hip isn't rolling forward or back. Take your light weight and bring your arm to that 90-degree angle, like a right angle. Elbow stays against the body, and you're gonna rotate up, down. So I'm rotating from my upper arm, up, down. Try to keep the wrist strong so you're not moving your wrist like bending it back. Depending on the weight that you have, maybe you can do 2 or 3 more. Once you're really feeling a burning in your shoulders, just set that aside. Reevaluate if you still feel like you have hip on top of hip. And then we'll do knees down, feet up. Knees down, feet up. And then feet go down, feet up, without rolling that right hip forward. Can you still find that 360 breath here? Even if the breath is quicker. Next time that your feet are up, we're gonna keep them up, push those feet together, and then pry the thighs apart and down. Up and down. Up, keep pushing that foot up until it feels like you couldn't possibly do one more. That's gonna be really different for each person. Maybe last 1 or 2. Good, and then let yourself rest on the side. If you're still going, go ahead and do those couple more. You got this. And then we're gonna move into a position of rest. So that'll look very different for each of us. Maybe it's on your back, maybe it's on your side, maybe it's in your favorite recliner chair. I have no attachment to what your rest looks like. In fact, I can't even see you. So find a position that feels like physical and mental ease. And once you're there, shift a little, just a little. Sometimes what we envision as our mind as something that will be restful, in reality isn't so. So give yourself permission to shift positions or change them slightly. Let go of any breathing practices. And over the next few moments, allow your body to be breathed. Allow your senses to have experiences without anticipation or judgment, without disconnecting. Just follow the senses that show up for you, the thoughts that pop up, the way your body finds breath. Notice as though you're watching it happen to another person or on a movie screen. And continue to stay connected to this process of noticing. Noticing without hanging on until you hear my voice again. Notice how you're feeling here as you welcome in your next inhale and exhale. Starting to reawaken your body in whatever way feels comfortable and natural for you to do so. Some people might stretch, some people might tuck in, some people might roll or shake. Take your time here to acclimatize. And when you feel ready, feel free to join me back in a seated shape like how we started this practice together. No hurry. And once you're there, maybe take a moment to recognize gratitude to yourself for having made time for your practice. I want to share gratitude to my teachers and lineage. I want to share gratitude to the people upon whose land I live and I practice. And I want to share gratitude with all of you for joining me here. I look forward to practicing with you again very soon. Once again, my name is Carly Stong. Thank you so much.